it's Nichol Spohr for Simon Says Stamp with my monthly series, Making the Cut. This month is all about die cut birthday cards. We are going to be combining a bunch of fun, brand new DieCember dies with some previously released stamps and things for these really fun cards. I've actually made 8 cards for you today. Quite a few of them, 8, 9, I've made quite a few. Some of them are pretty similar. So I'm kind of showing you the pattern paper that inspired this set of cards. This is some Sunny Studio pattern paper in striped, silly, and polka dot are the ones I'm going to end up using. And we're going to start with our streamer card first. So this is the brand new streamer ribbons. And we are going to die cut a bunch of the striped paper with the streamer ribbons. And it is going to be really, really pretty. So what I ended up loving about this, the streamer ribbons actually die cut a bunch of detail into the die, but I think when paired with pattern paper, it looks even more amazing. You can choose to do this in any colors, and what I also love is that streamers are going to work for a lot of occasions, as are balloons, really. So keep that in mind when using these. You could turn these in to maybe like a baby shower card, a wedding shower card, anniversary cards, retirement party cards, any kind of celebration you can think of, these are going to work with. So definitely more versatile than just birthday. I tend to need a lot of birthday cards, and so I decided to concentrate on that today, but these are going to look beautiful in any colorway you choose. There are 2 different sizes. I am using the smaller of the 2 sizes, and I will tell you that I'm going to get all of my pieces from quite a few leftover pieces of pattern paper, or I'm only going to use 1 sheet for anything you see here. The last card I created that has the candles is the only card that kind of features another pattern with some polka dot. I stuck to the stripe mainly. One of the great things about this stripe is one side is diagonal and the other side is straight horizontal or vertical stripes, depending on how you do that. You'll see that I'm also die cutting a birthday candle here, as well as the bunch of balloons. And the candles are called Party Candle, and that's going to be for our final card. Next, we are going to stamp a patterned background using the My Favorite Things Happy Birthday background. I stamped that with unicorn white ink on Simon Says Stamp Fog Gray cardstock for a little additional interest. Now, if you have a text pattern paper or even something with a nice subtle background, because I don't think you want anything too terrible distracting because there's quite a lot going on the cards, you could totally use that. I didn't really have anything that was going to work, or at least not enough. And so this was a great way to mass produce a bunch of birthday cards that have similar background, or the same background basically. We're just gonna switch up some of the things on the front. So again, this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel of fog gray cardstock with unicorn white ink on top. I am showing here that I am going to take the It's Your Birthday die. This is another brand new die that was released in DieCember, and I have die cut this twice from smooth white cardstock and once from the white on white or white on gray, however you want to say that, striped silly pattern paper. I love this pattern paper. It's from that striped silly, which is what I'm using for the colorful stripes. In fact, the little piece there that you can see on screen is all I have left. I have been hoarding it, which is really funny. Because it is white on white, it's not that interesting, but it's one of my very favorites. And what I love is when you die cut it then, and I die cut the stripes vertically, it does give a subtle pattern to that sentiment. I don't think it translates maybe on screen as well as it does in person, but it really does give a nice little subtle effect to this. I didn't really want to add a color to my sentiment, simply because we have a lot of color going on with our ribbon streamers. And so this was a great way to add some interest that doesn't overpower everything else. Now this card, I did go ahead and use some silver holographic Simon Says stamp cardstock with the brand new stars die. Yes, these dies can be cut apart. No, I did not cut them apart to die cut them. I actually die cut them as is to use just for this card, and then I will have some leftovers. I'm going to concentrate on using the smaller ones, but this is a fantastic basic. It's got so many different sizes of stars. I love star accents, and this is a great set for all kinds of different cards and occasions. I'm going to scatter those silver holographic stars around my streamers. I did already lay those out all over the background panel. I glued my It's Your Birthday sentiment in place. I've added a little heart for the dot on the eye. And then my streamers, the glue, liquid glue I used has dried. So I'm going to take my scissors and trim off any of that excess there. And there is our background. There's hardly anything simpler than a streamer background here. I love all the fun color. I again added tons and tons of these to the background, and I love the finished result. I noticed a couple places the glue, I didn't get the glue quite out to the edge, so I fixed that, trimmed up anything there. And then I did notice a little bit of mess of liquid glue. So I'm using my Spellbinders Tool-in-One to fix that up. And then I do want to add a little bit more embellishment to the background with these Lucy's Little Things clear iridescent. These are the itty bitty stars in clear iridescent, I guess I should say. So they're going to be pretty subtle, and it's just going to play on that star theme that we have interspersed with our streamers. Now, the final thing I'm going to want to do for my card today is add a little stamped sentiment. I always like to pair some sort of sentiment strip with a die cut greeting, especially a little stamped sentiment strip. That's my favorite, but you could always use some of the pre-made sentiment strips as well. So for today's card, I actually delved into my Simon Says stamp stash, and we are going to use Stop, Drop, and Party stamp set. This is a CZ design stamp set. There are coordinating dies for the sentiments. That is going to come in handy here when we work on our next set of cards. Right now, we're actually going to take Have the Best Day Ever, and we are going to stamp that right below It's Your Birthday. Once I've stamped that sentiment right below It's Your Birthday, I will be using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Our card with the ribbon streamers is all finished, and we are going to move on to a set of cards. Why a set of cards? Well, this next die really die cuts a bunch all at once. It's not separate balloons. This is the bunch of balloons. And so I thought to myself, if I'm going to be die cutting all of these different pattern papers so that I have a different color of balloon for each balloon here in this bunch, then we're going to make enough cards to use up all of those pattern paper pieces. I don't mind so much discarding the white balloon pieces from the die cut outline because I also needed to die cut the bunch of balloons 7 times. However, I did have a problem throwing away all of these pattern papers. Like I said, I hoard these. They're some of my very favorite that I have in my stash. And so I thought, you know what? This is the perfect opportunity to replicate a bunch of birthday cards with the bunch of balloons die. I did off camera stamp 7 backgrounds, again, using the My Favorite Things Happy Birthday background stamp with white pigment ink on Simon Says stamp fog gray cardstock. So there's going to be 7 of those prepped and ready to go. And then I'm simply inlaying my balloons into the white die cut outline. I'm using a little liquid glue to make this easier. And I'm simply going to go through each card background and inlay each of the balloons. Now I won't do all of them on camera since it was a little time consuming just to put them all together. It did go fairly quickly, but once you've seen one, you've seen them all. And then I'm going to stamp some sentiments again from the Stop, Drop, and Party. This time we're going to do a couple of different sentiments. So I'm choosing Let's Party and Super Happy Birthday, which are two of the bolder print sentiments from the set. You can kind of see the set in the upper part of the screen. And we are going to stamp those on slate gray cardstock with clear embossing ink and heat emboss with white embossing powder. I am going to stamp these two sentiments or some combination of them 7 times. And then we're going to take the coordinating dies and die cut these so that I have 7 of these bold sentiments. Then after we have got those 7 sentiments, we're going to take a couple of other phrases, or I think I even used 3 different phrases from Stop, Drop, and Party. And we're going to stamp those on smooth white cardstock with the VersaFine Onyx black ink and create our own sentiment strips. If you want to make this even easier, you can take pre-made sentiment strips, trim them apart, and pop them on the card. And that would be even easier than this step here. I really love that a lot of the sentiments from Stop, Drop, and Party have coordinating dies, so you can die cut these really easily. In the case of this, this card design, I should say, it would have been a little more difficult to find somewhere to stamp a sentiment directly on the background, just because I filled the background with all kinds of goodies with our bunch of balloons, and we are even going to add leftover streamers. I didn't have enough leftover. I did end up having to die cut quite a few more, but I had a few leftover streamers from my first card, and I thought, let's try incorporating them into these balloon cards. And I have to say, I think they are the perfect finishing touch. It looks like the balloons are floating up amongst the streamers. So these are the phrases I chose to use on my cards. I am using Here's to One More Glorious Trip Around the Sun and Tell Everyone You Know. So the way I'm going to combine these is I'm going to combine Let's Party with Tell Everyone You Know, which I think is hilarious. Kathy does such a great job with this. And then Super Happy Birthday, Here's to One More Glorious Trip Around the Sun. And I think the other option I did was Have the Best Day Ever. And I just did one of those. Now I stamped those with black ink, and I die cut all of those with sentiment labels dies. If you guys have seen any of my videos, you know that I can hardly make a card with a sentiment strip without using my sentiment labels dies. They are my most often used dies from Simon Says Stamp, and I highly, highly recommend them. Now I'm laying out my streamers, and I am just simply going to start gluing these in place. Luckily, most of my cards, the very end of my bunch of balloons, because I've already glued them down and I kind of decided to add these last minute, I am able to put a streamer kind of underneath the end of the balloon strings, which helps give some depth and dimension, like the balloons are floating up amongst the streamers. And then I am going to overlay just slightly on the balloons up at the top of the card with a streamer, and I'm going to layer the other ones down here. So I have 2 up at the top and 3 at the bottom. I really felt like this was enough streamers to add to the card, because I did need quite a few of these. Now, something I noticed when I was die cutting my extra streamers for my card is that my pattern paper was sticking in the dies and then tearing a little bit. There are a few places I had to piece it together, and I'm totally good with that. That's actually fine, because I don't think you can even tell in the finished card. But I got smart, and I actually took my powder tool that I usually use for embossing, and I ran it on the die before I placed it on the pattern paper and ran it through my die cutting machine, and it helped keep the pattern paper from sticking so badly in the die. So as I went on, that's what I was doing, and it worked really, really well. If you're having a die that maybe starts having the paper stick to it, try taking your powder tool, either the EK Success one or the little powder bag, either one, and run them on the die, and then run it through with your pattern paper and see if your results are a little better. Now I made sure to kind of really give my streamers a lot of movement. They're not lined up perfectly. I really wanted them to look natural. Once completely glued down, in fact, I don't think I waited quite long enough for this blue streamer, I will trim off any excess off of my card. So I kind of did this assembly line style, and then I finished with a scattering of some gold matte stars and little red hearts. For our final card today, again, same background as before, but this time we're going to use the Happy B-Day die. This is a CZ design die for DieCember, brand new again. Yes, I'm using the white on white stripe. I accidentally glued it down, and then I was like, girl, what are you doing? You forgot your 2 layers. So I have 2 white layers of cardstock and then my pattern paper one on top. Then we will place this on the shadow. The shadow really does make a difference, especially with this color of background and this color of die cut sentiment, as it helps it pop off the background. And this time we are going to be using the party candles. You can see them over there on the left side of the screen. You guys, I was so excited about these party candles. I don't know what it is, but I love candle dies, stencils, stamps. Do you guys too? I don't know what it is, but I love them. So then I am going to pop up Happy Birthday with foam adhesive, and I will tell you right now, I started way, way, way too high on my card. So I am going to kind of carefully, in fact, I left it in the video, peel that up and move it down just a smidge. And then we're going to pop up the candles with foam adhesive as well. Now, just the candles, not the flames. There were a couple of things about this card that I changed midway through, and I am going to leave it in because I want you to see. But I am going to start adhering my candles. Like I said, they are adhered with foam adhesive, and this is the card where I used the stripe. I used either the diagonal stripe, then I used a horizontal stripe, or polka dots. And the polka dot is simply flipping the paper over for the 2 different types of polka dot. I love that about these pattern papers. The stripe is the same way. So I just wanted to mix it up so the patterns weren't exact all the way across. And then I've lined them up in rainbow order. We're going to glue those down with foam adhesive. Now, the thing I did with this, so the party candle actually has a layer. You could die cut your candle from a color of cardstock or pattern paper and then die cut a layer with either another color or white, and it's going to give it that diagonal effect. Because I used pattern paper, I did not feel like we needed to do that step for this card. So if you want to make it a little easier on yourself, that's where pattern paper comes in handy. I've been asked so much lately if I would share more pattern paper cards, and so that's what inspired me to create these birthday cards that had an emphasis on pattern paper. Now the difference is, for the flame, there is a big and a small, and I used just the small and die cut all of the yellow flames. Well, I started to glue them down as I was putting my candles down, and the candles are all at varying heights and they're tilted this way and that. And I was looking at it and I was thinking to myself, I don't think this is exactly what I want. It's cute, it would totally be fine, but I think this part of the design needs a layer behind it. I think we should take some orange paper. I think I actually used the orange and white stripe because I only needed a little tiny bit. It was left over from the streamers. In fact, I threw the rest of the pattern paper away when I was done, and I usually hoard it. But I used every little bit and piece of that pattern paper to die cut the larger flame for my candles. So I've already glued down the yellow part of the candle for 3 of these. And as I'm looking at it, I know that that's not what I want to do. So I'm going to take my Spellbinders Tool-in-One. I'm adding the orange candles or orange flame, pardon me, right now. And I'm going to carefully peel up the yellow flames. I thought I could mix and match and maybe leave some of them small, but I could tell right away that I was not going to love that. And so I wanted to just show that you can get them up. If you want to, you could always try a little undo as well. I was able to get these up without tearing anything underneath. So here you can see me taking my two-in-one, and I'm just going to lay them actually on the backing sheet for my foam adhesive squares because I want to reuse those. And we're going to grab some extra orange flames and then finish off our layered candles. I think the layered candles make a much bigger statement, especially when we take some Nouveau Crystal drops in White Blizzard and add that to the yellow part of the flame. So it's got that sparkly goodness, sparkly glittery goodness to it is kind of what I want to call it. Final details for this card are also going to be a scattering of matte gold itty bitty stars. These are Lucy's Little Things. The matte gold is probably my favorite that I use all the time. I used the iridescent on the first card, and then I ended up using matte gold on all of my others. I don't know why. It doesn't matter, but I think little finishing touches like this finish off the card so nicely. We are going to have a little sentiment strip. I picked It's Your Day and We Love You. Now this is actually from a different stamp set. This is going to be from the Birthday Messages stamp set, also from Simon Says Stamp. This is an older little mini stamp set. I love it. I have stamped and stamped and stamped it. In fact, most of the stamps have been used so many times they're a little stained, but I love this set. And I thought it was the perfect little phrase. We're gonna die cut it with the Sentiment Labels die. And then I did add a little red heart down here to the end of Happy B-Day. And it's just going to finish off the design perfectly, I think. This sentiment strip is popped up with foam adhesive. In fact, any sentiment strips I used on my cards today is popped up with foam adhesive. And this is so cute like this, but I do think the little red heart and the scattering of stars are just going to tie it all together perfectly. So I would love for you guys to let me know if you have picked up some of these new birthday products here at Simon Says Stamp and what your favorite birthday dies are. There are so many good ones in this release. There's also a Sorry I Forgot that's really similar to It's Your Birthday, which I think would be amazing if you need a belated birthday card. You could pop this onto any of the designs. You can mix and match the sentiments with these backgrounds. And again, don't need a birthday card, need it for another celebration. Completely swap out that sentiment for something else, and you will have an occasion for any kind, or a card for any kind of occasion or celebration. I'm just gonna pick up these last few little embellishments and pop them in place. Thank you guys so very much for joining me for the December edition of Making the Cut here at Simon Says Stamp. Please remember that the supplies I used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube for your convenience. Please be sure to visit the Simon Says Stamp blog for more information, and thank you guys so very much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.